The following is an Operation Podcast production.
So my transformation, my diabetes was reversed overnight, and to lose 120 pounds, get off of SSRIs, get off of fentanyl. So for me, Follistatin enabling me, similar results to you, where my endurance went up, like my V02 max went up after doing Follistatin.
Really?
The reduction in inflammation for some people can result in a cognitive performance boost.
I can't stop. Like, my endurance is through the roof. I literally find myself third, fourth set banging out more reps than even the beginning. My ability to maintain body composition in terms of weight and even free fat mass to muscle mass, given the months now that my training and lifestyle has changed because I had a kid.
Hello, my name is Jay Spall. I'm a biochemist by training. Welcome to Ever Forward Radio. I had a spinal injury when I was very young, and we were immigrants. I'm an immigrant from Pakistan. So when we came to US, my leg was numb. My left leg, my foot was numb, didn't know what was going on. This was like degeneration and disc herniation that kind of happened from an injury. And over the years, it just got worse, got to a point where I couldn't feel my toes. So, we're a poor family, go to a county hospital, go there, within a few months, they do a surgery. Mm-hmm. And it was an intern who did the surgery. It was a major surgery, L4, L5, S1, discectomy, laminectomy they did on me. This is in 2004, before the opioid awareness, before physicians became very aware that, hey, this is a problem, mm-hmm. and people became aware. So had a surgery, I'm a kid, and they send me home with pain medication. And
narcotics?
That was, opioids, narcotics, yes, controlled medication. Started with all pretty similar cocktail to what you got on, but started with hydrocodone, Percocet, hydromorphone, methadone, it's just a cycling process of all these. Got on these, and within a few months, started having other side effects. Oh, my stomach is not feeling good. Go to the doctor, and he's like, oh, here's some proton pump inhibitors, for your stomach. Well, that few months go by, and I'm not giving exact timelines, but this was a trajectory. Other few months, I'm having sleep problems, and the doctor's like, well, there's some Ambien or Lunesta, Well, a few months later, I'm anxious and having trouble in school, oh, well, let's give you some benzos. And some time goes on, the doctor's like, I think you're depressed. Everything you're describing, you're depressed. Well, here's some SSRIs. The SSRIs aren't working now anymore. Well, let's add a booster like Wellbutrin. So before I knew it, a decade, 15 years had gone by, and I was ballooned up to 358 pounds at my peak. Jeez. Immobile, depressed, just barely surviving,
On this crazy cocktail of medications.
Yeah.
They're just giving you to mask another problem.
Exactly. It's a Western medicine, traditional Western medicine Band-Aid approach, not getting to the root, and they just want to get you out and get you fixed. So I had come to a conclusion I'm going to die, because I was being told that pretty consistently. I was full on diabetic. My A1C was hovering around 9. My liver was failing. My kidneys weren't in good shape. And I had pancreatitis. And the doctor was like, you got 6 months to live. You're not going to live a very long time. Went through this crazy process in a hospital in Vegas, in an ICU, got admitted for pancreatitis, severe pain. And my nephew was being born. And congratulations on your newborn.
Thank you. Yeah. Shout out Deanie, baby.
Yeah.
He's probably not listening, probably pooping his pants somewhere, but yeah.
Hope he listens one day.
Yeah.
But I think this will resonate very well with you, because a pivotal moment to my life was my nephew being born. I had so my sister was pregnant around the same time I was in the ICU. I had accepted, and there's a spiritual component to the story too. I had accepted that I'm the leaf that falls, and he's the new one that sprouts. And
that's beautiful, man. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I
mean, it's kind of morbid, but beautiful. Yeah.
I had kind of let it go. I had given up hope. And I had this experience where I fade away, essentially die in the hospital, in the ICU. And
you actually did, didn't you?
Yeah. Like, they brought me back.
Like flatline, he's gone.
Yeah. I just remember just fading away. They brought me back. And I'm wobbly, time has passed like minutes. I don't know if it's half hour. I go to the bathroom, I'm wobbling. I called my father and I asked him, how's my sister? How's the nephew? And because I was surprised that I'm still here. And he's like, oh, he's good. He's healthy. Something clicked in my brain and it was like a download or something.
He was born, your nephew was born while you were
going through this process.
In the hospital.
Yeah, exactly. And as soon as I found out Zane was well, something clicked in my head and I was like, this is not my time. And I'm going to live. And so my transformation, it was that period to 6 months after, December 2018, middle of 2019, I had lost over 120 pounds. I was, I'll share some photos with you after. I was just a completely different person.
I've seen them, a few. I remember from
you may have seen them. Yeah, it was just a very drastic transformation that I went through. Most of the people in the company that I was then part of, they ended up wanting to become my clients. Like, how did you do this? My diabetes was reversed overnight. So that was the story. And in that story, there's a lot of detail. And to lose 120 pounds, get off of SSRIs, get off of fentanyl. For a decade, I was on, same as you, on the fentanyl patches. And that was a brutal process, so getting off all the pharmaceutical stack. And in that journey, I figured out a lot of interesting facets and now very popularized biohacks. But at that time, 5-10 years ago, a lot of these things were not very popular, not very well known. So over, the span of next few months, few years, this really evolved into my career because I was very passionate about the subject. For me to get healthy from death, to come back, I essentially had to master certain subjects, and in that process, I just started converting to how do I help others with this? So I ended up becoming a consultant, essentially a coach, but from like my background's in biochemistry, chemistry. So, I kind of like leverage that I'm a scientist. I'm not going to be your medical doctor, but I will coach you and oversee some of the processes to get people healthy. So I did that in LA for a handful of years, evolved into the peptide space, consulting for some stem cell clinics, just coming up with interesting protocols, IV protocols, and then the latest venture, how you and I linked up, mini-circle gene therapy, something I'm just absolutely obsessed with. But that's, in a nutshell, been a little bit of the journey.
I think what I'm hearing in your story as well that I can relate to is there's a really powerful way that fear can influence, can be a catalyst for taking our life back, for taking our health back. And for me, that was, one of the big reasons why I got so passionate about health, wellness before even my injuries and recovery process was seeing it in my family. I've got type 1 diabetics in my family. My grandfather was, for lack of a better term, raging alcoholic and died on our couch from just, heart failure. No shade there, but just truth. And then also my father, who lived a more or less healthy life, active life, but for whatever reason, God, the universe decided, hey, here's a terminal illness. Here's ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease, and he had an 18-month span of diagnosis to when he passed. And so when he passed away in 2005, that was really kind of the catalyst for me of fear, of seeing disease, but going, okay, if there's anything that I can do in any form to ideally prevent that or just give myself the best fighting chance possible, then I'm going to do it. That coupled with being really humbled and going through those injuries just gave me this next level motivation. And straight up, it was fear. And I think people overlook fear, the power, the influence, the positive aspect that fear can have for taking your life back. Was that on the table for you? And if so, how did you really harness fear to literally get your life and your health back?
Man, I love how you articulated that and how you connected that. I think about this often, actually. The point you brought up about fear. You know, fear is a very strong motivator. You know, the fight, flight response that animals have, this is the root is fear. You're fearing something. All of a sudden you get this surge in your body of neurotransmitters. You start making more energy. You got to essentially run away from the lion, right? That's what we're talking about. So I definitely did use fear a lot. But one realization I have had in the last 6-7 years is you can use it, but it's not sustainable. So using it in the pockets when you do have to run away from the lion, when I was dying and I needed to change something drastically overnight, right? Like come to Jesus moment, fear, you can leverage fear. You can use fear to take you do a major leap, but sustainability, to be able to sustain the positive benefits, you need love. That's the root emotion, which I do my best to operate by and drive everything, in business, relationship, also self-love, right? That's something I had to learn. And this is what I also heard you say that I want to kind of elaborate and get into. This is one of the areas where I have a lot of good connection and similarities with a lot of the veterans, and you're a veteran yourself, and that's emotional resolution. That is very, very underrated when it comes to health, but so much of our health is tied to our emotional well-being. And when you are in a bad cycle, whether you're addicted or whatever kind of health ailments you have, part of your betterment journey, there's a deep emotional connection. Until you can get off the opioids, you can go through the withdrawals, you can do a lot of these things, but until you emotionally resolve some of the traumas and some of the PTSD, you can get stuck in a loop, right? And I'll give an example on this to elaborate a little bit more. One of the areas in science that I'm really fascinated by is how digestion is impacted by stress. So it can become a negative feedback loop where you're more stressed, now your digestion is bad. The gut-brain connection, now your digestion is bad, your brain is being impacted poorly, that leads to more stress. Now you're more stressed, now your digestion is worse. So you have to kind of address a lot of these facets, and it's a dynamic approach, So you want to pharmaceutically address it, you want to change your lifestyle, but also resolve emotionally.
So well said. Cannot agree more. And that ultimately for me was when I prioritize emotional intelligence and just acknowledging emotions and feelings beyond just like, oh, this is what I do to feel my best. Any other feeling other than this is I don't have time for that or it doesn't serve me. No. Like true healing and true power and your true power and your true health absolutely comes from welcoming those less than pleasant feelings and stepping into the shadow work, absolutely, to learn what they're there to teach you. Emotional resolve, absolutely. Yeah. Kind of spin-off question there. What do you think it is about fear that keeps people from taking action? Because fear is there. We could all be going through the very exact same health scenario. We get an injury, we get a chronic illness, disease, whatever. Some people use the fear as a catalyst for change to take their power back, and others just let it wash over them and they stay stuck there. What's the differentiation there?
I think the differentiation is not very large. It's essentially the same response that you're having, whether it's temporary fear or sustainable, like consistent fear, right? I think what happens in a lot of these scenarios is people get very they get addicted to the response, their bodies, like it's a nervous system addiction, I did some Joe Dispenza work many years ago, and that's one of the components. He talks a lot about in manifestation and how do you make a change, and you do have to break the cycle because we can get addicted to fear. It's like if once the fear goes away or the item resolves, you may just recreate it over and over because you get used to of how you can operate in a state of fear. So reframing your motivation is I think is a very, very good idea, because fear, we are not supposed to constantly be running away from a lion. That happens. And the fascinating difference between humans and animals is humans are one of the rarest of animals that actually remember getting chased by the lion.
Yeah.
Animals are, the deer is going to the same lake, half an hour later, an hour later.
When they were chased by a lion.
When they were chased by a lion a few minutes ago, so we're more dynamic,
So then I got to ask, man, I'm sure there were a lot of things, but what was the first thing as we kind of begin to go down this journey of the optimization and just like, again, the mad scientist that you are, was there a thing or a couple things that you leaned to first that you really felt like this is going to get me out of this rut? This is going to help me lose the weight, get my sleep back, reduce inflammation, but also with that longevity component. Was there a thing or a couple things? What were they? And also why? What made you gravitate towards them and how did you implement them?
Yeah, what a great way to put that question. Definitely, that is a question I get asked I've been asked maybe thousands of times in the last half decade. Here's a relatively okay articulation, and my response. Hormone optimization was one of the first things I addressed. Hormone optimization and diet. Those were, before I got to anything else, I realized that that's something I have to do. One of the things that for both females and males, but specifically for males, that is important for audience and people to understand. And I know you're very well versed in hormone optimization, and your wife does that work as well. When somebody's overweight, it's another negative feedback loop. Because you're overweight, now you have lower testosterone. Because you're overweight, more of the testosterone is getting converted into estrogen. So now you have a higher probability of staying overweight and getting worse and worse. So breaking that cycle was very, very critical for me. And I chose to do it exogenously. And then the dietary component,
Meaning what?
Hormone
therapy?
Yeah, hormone therapy. Testosterone replacement
okay.
therapy. Yeah. So I took exogenous testosterone, injected testosterone once or twice a week.
Which I think, not to interrupt, but I think this is a very important point for someone to pick up on. This is a critical realization in your health journey and a critical realization for anyone in their health journey of when and where and why. Going straight to that might be a better option for you at the time. You run through your hormone panel, you realize your T is low, your free T is low, your sex binding hormone globulin there, that's mouthful,
is high.
Yeah. So like you're hormonally, biochemically, the odds are against you. Now, going straight to TRT therapy, hormone therapy can really solve that problem or put you on a path to solving that much more quickly, I would say, to some degree, than what we know to be true through diet, exercise, sleep, dialing in a few things there. Why did you go to hormone therapy first? Because I know that you didn't stop there. Use that as a way to like really kind of jumpstart things.
Yep.
Coupled with diet, exercise, and kind of radical lifestyle modification.
Yeah. You nailed it. It's you got to weigh the odds, right? And I couldn't be more aligned with you. This is when you have a shit card and you're in a bad spot, when you're overweight, the probability of you dying from that is very, very high. So it's about, risk management and solving this problem radically and essentially overnight, very quickly, can be actually in the long run very, very beneficial for the health. So, the reality is I came to a lot of these conclusions. It was a process. I had tried so many things and failed relatively consistently, so I got my ass kicked in many, many areas and just learned and evolved some of this information over time. So even the the way I approach my diet was actually also very aggressive, something that you typically don't want to do in your normal lifestyle. It's not good for longevity or optimization, but as a 358 pound, young adult, I'm in bad shape. I'm going to die. So what I opted for, I also weighed the odds. What I opted for, I went on a 4-ingredient diet. And this is not medical advice that I'm giving people, but this is the decision I made to solve the problem as quickly as possible. So get on testosterone, manage my hormones, and second was go in a full ketogenic diet. And basically I had consumed really horrible fats and wasn't mobile, wasn't active for a very long time in my life while I was on opioids. So the strategy was I'm going to get most of my calories from healthy fats. So I was eating ribeye, butter, salt, and bacon.
So really kind of going carnivore slash
keto diet. And I knew that I was digging into it. I know there's the Jordan Petersons of the world, a lot of other doctors that are full carnivore.
Dr. Sean Baker.
Yeah. But, I knew I walked into it kind of knowing this is not sustainable for me. I don't want to ever end up in a position where I can't, if I accidentally have a vegetable, I'm going to have a reaction, right? So I made a conscious decision that, I'm going to do it for 1 month. In 26 days, I lost 47 pounds. A lot of it was water weight, know. And then after that, I slowly started introducing other foods, and I wasn't fully in deep ketosis the entire time. I was, accidentally messing up, once a week. So I was it was kind of like a cyclic ketogenic diet, I would say. Yeah. So it's just naturally, in 1 month I had lost half of the weight, and then the rest of the weight I lost in the next 5-6 months. Wow. The funny thing is, and I'm very transparent with people about this, because I had the injury, I actually lost 100 pounds with no exercise. The only thing that I did was walking, because I couldn't really exercise. I was in a lot of pain. One of the other interesting things that people who haven't experienced being overweight, I'm a scientist. I can kind of talk about some of the nuanced details and experiences. And I'm in this position where I can speak about it. In a way, not a lot of people who've gone through this journey are in the position to speak about it or have the scientific background to be able to articulate or even catch some of the details. One interesting thing with overweight people when they're going through this weight loss journey is fat stores a lot of toxins. And in the process of losing weight, when you're just shedding pounds, you're not feeling great. You don't know what toxic, how these chemicals that are stored in your fat are coming out, what they've, mutated, transformed into, So it can be challenging. There's a gentleness, as much as I love the David Goggins pocket of approach of like stern, very aggressive and hard. But I do also like the gentle approach that with some of these individuals, because I went through it, you got to have grace and gentleness. It can be very defeating to throw somebody right in the gym into, an intensive exercise schedule.
So you can get results with a lot of different things when it comes to your health, especially when it comes to weight loss. But ultimately, and any good coach, any good clinician, any good dietitian, whatever, would tell you the same thing. It depends. It depends on the person. There's a huge humanization and emotional component to it. But also, number one thing is always adherence. If we can't keep you adherent, get you adherent to it, then it might work in the short term. But man, I've seen it more times than not. It's just going to come back. Again, you're going to get defeated. You're going to realize I can't keep this up. So if you don't develop a plan that keeps you adherent along the way, then that's just a short-term change to a long-term problem that's going to come back.
Yeah. Yeah, ultimately lifestyle, right?
Exactly.
This needs to evolve from intervention into a lifestyle. And if it doesn't do that, then it's just going to keep, I was in that loop, approaching all these different things, hormone optimization too, or TRT. I did a few times before, like really sticking with it. Because, the interesting thing with testosterone also is when your T is very low, you kind of don't have motivation to go seek a doctor or a clinic to go get it. So it's like a bad kind of place because you need a little testosterone to get up, to go figure out how you're going to get more testosterone, right? The great thing for people now, that are listening and following this journey is things are easier now. There's a lot more awareness around these subjects, the accessibility, the time, 10 years ago, you'd go to a doctor and if your testosterone levels are at 200, they're like, they're not going to prescribe it. You're fine, So now, there's coaches, the work you did, the work I did, your wife, these clinics, people have help and information available now.
Yeah. All right, so let's take us back to the first things you were implementing were you went to hormone therapy, testosterone replacement therapy, and addressing significant dietary and lifestyle changes. Then what did you get into? Was this just kind of like Pandora's box to, okay, now I'm losing the weight, I'm feeling better, I'm assuming getting better sleep, my mood's better, the motivation's coming back, and all these things that are catalysts for, again, adherence and building your lifestyle for change. Was it then, okay, what are these peptides? What are these other biomarkers, longevity factors that I am becoming interested about? And how can I manipulate them? Did your goals change? Like, what was kind of like next step?
Yeah, next step was feeling better because I was not feeling good even after I had lost the weight. So I wanted to feel better. A lot of it was associated with not just the weight loss, but being addicted to opioids, the withdrawals. And the withdrawals can last a hefty duration. So one of the best things that I did during that period was interventional IVs, NAD IVs. Okay. So NAD IVs, have you ever done one?
Yeah.
Yeah, there, as you're familiar, somebody who's going through withdrawals and some brain challenges, NAD can be critical.
That probably was not a fun half-hour experience.
I got the first NAD IV I did. I was in such bad shape. It took 5.5 hours to do.
Oh, man.
5.5 hours to do. It was brutal. It was a gram IV. I did Myers cocktail before, but in the last half decade, I've probably done like 200 NAD IVs, and I got to a point where I could do an IV in 9 minutes.
I'll burn through them, which is a testament, this is where I think a lot of people get a bad rap or bad taste in their mouth, literally, with an NAD or any kind of IV, because you go through them and you're like, this is supposed to help, or you hear people, your doctor is supposed to say this is going to help. But especially with NAD, the more discomfort, generally speaking here, you experience in an IV drip with NAD, it means your NAD receptors are just like fried and or just completely non-existent. And so your body's having to just completely rewrite its system to receive these like cellular boosting longevity, just enhance it, like everything. NAD is so important. So it's a good testament for people to kind of go like, all right, I'm receiving it. I don't like it, but that means that it's working. That means that it's working. Yeah,
absolutely. NAD was my next step, which was really helpful. I did 5 NAD IVs back to back. That was a big, it got me a lot more energy, because I was very, before I started the journey, I was very defeated, as I shared with you. And then after, I lost the weight, and as I'm losing the weight, I was motivated, but I was very deflated, like my energy levels were very low. So NAD was a very, very good boost. It reset some of my, some of the items in my brain. So I started to feel better. And the evolution was, very quickly I evolved into peptides, oral peptides, injectable peptides. I got absolutely fascinated by peptides, just looking at, BPC 157. I had some sleep problems. So I was looking at DSIP, delta sleep inducing peptides,
I don't know that one.
Yeah, delta sleep inducing. It's a peptide you can take that will, can
induce delta wave.
Exactly. Can double your deep sleep. Doesn't necessarily help with your REM sleep, but can double your deep sleep. There's always a uniqueness to a lot of the modalities we're talking about, even the gene therapy that we're going to talk about, there's a biochemical uniqueness that individuals have. So some people may not respond, but others respond really well. So yeah, I went down the rabbit hole with a lot of these peptides and slowly started using them and added them to my life. I found a functional doctor in San Diego that I started working with who was a lot more aggressive. You know, like a regular doctor would never recommend human growth hormone. You know, like, but this doctor was like, no, with the things you're dealing with, what you've gone through, I actually want you to do a relatively high dose for a few weeks of it that will heal things. So one by one started essentially moving through the body, you know, things that have been damaged and kind of like creating a system where I'm prioritizing improving something before the next thing, right? Can't tackle everything at once, right? So what you can by having a good lifestyle, but the aggressive interventional approach, you got to stage gate the process. So
that's the only way you're really going to ever know what's working for you. Right?
Yeah.
I think that's an important point to highlight as well right now, because there are so many eyes on the longevity and optimization and biohacking, you know, enhanced wellness, dynamic wellness scene right now of light therapy, peptide therapy, cold plunging, sauna, working out. So, I mean, you name it, you open up Instagram and you're going to see all of it. I think this is where it gets messy for a lot of people, is because they see these people that they're probably trying to get to some form of lifestyle, physique, energy, whatever, and they see them do all of these things. So they assume I need to do all of these things, but then it might not work for you, but also you don't really know which of those things are working for you and which are not. So I love this kind of calculated, again, speaks to your kind of, you know, more scientific background of I need an aggressive change to my life. So I'm going to jump to an aggressive thing, but then I'm also just going to wait and see if that's working and if it's for me, and then on to the next thing. So what was the next thing? And then how did you know where to go? I'm kind of fascinated by like your stepping stones of like hormone therapy, nutrition, peptides. Like, how did you know? Was it through what you were finding and other people similarly in your health path? Was it just through research? Was it like cutting edge stuff that you were kind of testing ahead of time? Like, how did you know which aggressive thing was the next thing for you?
Yeah, good question. When I was addicted to the opioids, and after, you know, having that experience in the ICU in Vegas where I died, came back, I made a conscious decision in that moment, you know, realizing that I'm going to live. And the decision was, I'm going to take control of my own health. And I did. So what I did, this event that I shared with you happened end of December 2018. I took January 1st to January 7th off, and I managed my pain myself. Very drastic measures.
How'd you do that?
This story can get long, but it's a pretty interesting component of the story. I went to, my insurance wasn't letting me get off the opioids. They were like, we'll put you on methadone because
your insurance was not letting you get off of opioids.
The pain management doctor and the department there, I had asked them numerous times that I don't want to be on fentanyl anymore. They said, you're going to die if you get off fentanyl. You've been on it for so long. So what we can do is we can put you on methadone. It's are you familiar with it? Yeah. MMT, methadone maintenance programs. Usually they put heroin addicts or, you know, people in my scenario on it. And by that point, I was all too familiar with the opioid side effects and just the bad effects one can have for being on them consistently. So I was not wanting to make a commitment to go on MMT. So I, you know, had some money saved up. I went to a doctor, essentially like I later learned, because I was not in that world, essentially a concierge rehab doctor that celebrities would go to, you know, to like privately take care of their addiction. I ended up with one of these doctors, and the doctor was like, Jay, you've been on opioids very long time. You're on fentanyl. This is going to look rough and it's going to cost you more. Is there a way because he was dealing with addicts all the time. So is there a way you can get on heroin? You know,
is there a way you can get on heroin?
He's like, I would not give this advice I would not say this to anybody else, but I know you, I know who you are. Is there a way you can go from fentanyl to heroin? And I'm shook. I'm like, what? You know, I don't, of course, what? I don't come from that world, you know. Did some digging, did some research. Long story short, I ultimately did get some heroin. I did some research, came up with a protocol, and purified it, made little vape cartridges. And I only share the story transparently with people to not take things in your own hands, but also to understand the power of, you know, discipline and figuring things and wanting to get better. You know, I'm sharing this to hopefully be able to inspire people that no matter how far down you are, you can come out of it. So,
for lack of a better description here, you were basically microdosing heroin?
Yeah. So I got off the fentanyl and went on to dosing heroin. I wasn't microdosing for 1 week because, as you probably know, somebody who's an opioid addict, they're in a pretty consistent state of withdrawal. Yeah. And they're withdrawing the whole time they're on it because your tolerance for opioids goes up it's going up immediately. And within 2 weeks, your tolerance is at a point where your doctor is not able to give you consistently more opioids, but you need more and more and more.
Yeah, your receptors are fried.
So from January, the long answer to your question, so January 1st to January 7th, I did this. It's where I managed my own pain. But I wasn't in withdrawal this week because now I was in charge of my dose. So
Jay, how did you get your health back? I did heroin. I mean,
for 1 week, for 1 week to get off of fentanyl. Yeah. So during this 1 week, because I was actually pain-free for the first time in a decade, my brain like lit up and opened up. My creativity was like flowing again. In this 1 week, I clocked in maybe 1,000, you know, publications, articles, books, and I did not read things. I've read everything in a very selfish manner. I did not read things to digest everything to get a full. I was reading, could this be helpful for me? Glancing over it. If it was good, I would dig into it. Otherwise, I would move on. So I went through an insane amount of text during that 1 week where I read about hormones. I read about different diets. I read about Ayurveda. I read about gut optimization. And in that 1 week, I came up with a hierarchy and a plan, which I've already shared a portion of it. First was hormones. Second was diet. Third was, you know, interventional IVs, gut optimization, peptides. So I basically executed roughly on that plan in the next year.
Man, I knew some of this stuff. I didn't know a lot of these details. That's crazy. Like, I mean, one, I want to say like props to you for, first of all, deciding to use fear to your advantage, but also deciding that like you have the ultimate say-so in your health and in your life. Ultimately, that's what it takes. If you want a radically different life, if you feel like your health is nowhere near what you want it to be or what it could be, or if you're unfortunately suffering physical pain, mental pain, if you've been given these prescription medications under the guise that this is for your betterment, like, no, a lot of times, no. So you have to make these radical choices to make a radical difference in your life. I also want to say that there's a high level of restraint here. What you're doing, I think, is not common. Also might not even be recommended for a lot of people, but to know your edges, basically, and to really have and or begin to develop a really heightened sense of being in attunement with your body. It's like, okay, this thing that I wanted to change is changing. It's better. Okay, let me stop. This is working. And let me just kind of, rein things back in. And then let me get more dynamic, not just go from one problem to the next problem, putting one Band-Aid on for another, or getting even hooked on, heroin. Okay, so then we're going through all these things, making a lot of these radical changes. It sounds like things are kind of settling a bit for you. You're losing the weight. You're getting off a lot of these medications and narcotics and heroin. And now I'm assuming kind of getting into a lot of the peptides and, understanding more about gene therapy stuff.
Yeah. So one thing also worthy of noting for people is the technology for addiction, specifically around opioids and opioid addiction, opioid withdrawal, it is in a drastically different place now than it was. So people definitely don't do what I did. I was in a very unique sort of circumstance in an interesting time, working with a doctor who knew my background and ended up down that path. But there are a lot more solutions now, a lot more reasonable solutions now, and compounds available that can help people fight opioid addiction at just a lot more efficiently. It's still difficult, but it's more digestible now on how you can tackle it. So that's worthy of noting. Yeah. After that, the IVs, the peptides, and I became very interested in gene therapy.
Which is what, by the way? Can you kind of define that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll actually connect it to peptides. So you're familiar with BPC 157.
The first peptide I ever took. I think a lot of people are familiar with it. Unfortunately, right now, it's no longer available on the market. Well, ish. We'll say, but am I understanding correctly? The FDA pulled it. I know a lot of compounding pharmacies and hormone health optimization companies, you couldn't get it. You can't get it for a while.
Yeah. It's been challenging for 2 years. There's an addendum. There was an addendum because somebody in, I think, Texas pharmacy, a pharmacist just called in and complained, and they basically banned 10 of the most 10 of very popular, powerful peptides that people and even physicians had gotten, it went on their radar, and they started working with patients and helping people. They basically kind of disappeared. You can't get them through compounding pharmacies. There's still research channels and research peptides that, an individual can go through to acquire these. There's still ways, work with a professional in getting them. But yes, so I will segue this into talking about gene therapy, but I'll use BPC as an example. So BPC, it has a relatively a convenient half-life where you can inject it daily. You can inject it even twice a day and get a pretty good amount of benefits out of it. Human growth hormone is another one, that some people are familiar with. That's another peptide on the cusp of being a protein because larger, has about a 20-hour half-life. So these peptides, proteins, pretty convenient to consume if they have a good half-life. Follistatin, on the other hand, is a protein that has a very quick half-life. It's extremely beneficial, has been well-researched for about a quarter century. People in the longevity research loved it. It has some great muscle building, fat loss benefits. However, for consumers, it's a very challenging product to consume because you can't take it orally. You have to inject it. And even if you're fine with injecting it multiple times a day, you can't maintain steady plasma levels for it because the half-life is too short. It's about 45 minutes to an hour and a half, depending on the individual. Oh, wow. So you're essentially becoming a human pincushion if you want to get on this compound. You're injecting it throughout the day. Not sustainable, not feasible for consumer. This was one of the inspirations for development of this gene therapy, which is essentially a small circle DNA plasmid that has a code on it. The code corresponds to the said item that we want expressed by the cells locally that are transfected. So in layman's term, instead of having to take follistatin or BPC or one of these compounds of interest exogenously continuously, the way you do them is you put their corresponding code in a DNA plasmid, inject the individual. Now your body is making more of this code or this, whatever the code corresponds to, in this case, follistatin 344, for a period, for a duration, like up to a year. And that's the gene therapy tech that I'm working with, part of this company called MiniCircle. So easiest way to look at it is essentially a delivery platform. And follistatin is one of our first target genes because of, the short half-life. And it just seemed like a perfect candidate and fit for a platform like this. But we are working on other gene therapies, Clotho being the next one, which is very sought after in the biohacking community for cognitive boost. Can up an individual's IQ points in the range of 5, 10, maybe even higher. So that is not released yet, but that is the one we are allocating a lot of resources towards.
Man, wow. Yeah. Jeez. So it's like we're getting to the limitless. I'm being very loose here, but there's something we can take, a pill, an injection that can boost IQ, can literally make us smarter, think faster, think better, improve cognition.
Yeah. The limitless stuff is
do you hate it when people say that? Is that
I don't.
A farce
No, I don't. And it's not a far-fetched either. It's I've gotten to experience different versions of like the limitless feeling, modafinil probably being one of them. Very early on, a few decades ago, paracetam. I've always been obsessed with this space. I just had a shitty card dealt to me where I went in the other direction, but I've always been fascinated by this paracetams. And then as of late, there was a peptide called cerebrolysin that, a lot of these items, either compounded with something else or even just by themselves did lead to a feeling of like this limitless. So yes, we are definitely evolving and graduating technology to a point where we're becoming more and more limitless. And I do actually like the language because I believe in dreaming big and being extremely ambitious as an individual, as a company, as a scientist, as just like a visionary, you want to dream big. And even if you can accomplish, a small percentage of it, you're making a lot more progress than being conservative.
Absolutely, man. I mean, that's what Everford Radio is all about. That's the whole reason we're here. It's a really unique area. I feel through your story, your work, and what Mini Circle and the whole team is doing, and also what I've experienced being a patient of this process, is really bringing heightened attention and awareness to a key area of our well-being to help us live a life ever forward. I want to kind of bring it back to the follistatin. This was the procedure that I had done. This was is it safe to call it a peptide?
Protein. Protein. Okay. The way you want to look at it, so people can understand, amino acids are the building blocks for peptides. You put a few of the amino acids and together in a chain or whatever formation, they become a peptide. They get to become a peptide.
Okay.
As the peptide grows, there's some other scientific details around this too, but essentially it's amino acid, peptide, and protein.
Gotcha.
Yeah, protein is all the machinery in the body, all the DNA gets replicated, RNA all the machines in the factories, they're all protein. Your muscle is protein. Okay. Peptides are a lot of times signaling molecules in the body, and amino acids can also be. Yeah.
So again, I want to bring it back to fear, because actually what caught my attention most when this was presented to me was the pretty stout clinical evidence of things like Alzheimer's, dementia, neurological disease, multiple sclerosis, ALS. And again, I've shared with you, and my audience knows, my father's death and that ALS, that diagnosis, it's not hereditary. I've been tested for it, but it's something that's still in the back of my mind. Fear drives, what if? And so when I saw, again, through my own research and what you all presented, some really stout evidence showing its effects, and dare I even say thwarting, or just what we know it can do to put the body and the brain and the neurological system in a position to be much more resilient against things such like this, sold me. On top of that, it was great to see a lot of the evidence and personal experience from other people going mood, cognition. I think I even saw some like libido, but body composition, building muscle. People like Ben Greenfield, I know, who's public about it, kind of putting on, I think, like 10 pounds of muscle. Then
I think he got up to 11 or 14 maybe.
Okay.
I know 11 for sure, but he may have it may have gone up.
But, as someone, at the time, I'm 39 years old and stepping into the next phase of my life, beyond the fear aspect, that stuff was very appealing to me. And as someone who has been on TRT, I ran TRT low dose, for decent dose, for about 14, 15 months. I've now been off of TRT for close to 2 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
That's pretty fascinating.
Yeah.
And I actually have some questions. I'm curious, and I think people would also like to know, you're getting off protocol, and are you managing that with HCG and clomiphene? Yeah.
So I went on because I was 36. I just turned 36, and it had never been more difficult for me to get my ass to the gym. I was sitting on the couch trying to motivate myself just to go to the gym. This is something that I love to do. I was getting, again, defeated because I wasn't going as much as I wanted to. I had no real reason. I didn't have kids yet. I had, I could build my own schedule. I wasn't seeing the same results. My body composition, I was struggling so much more just to keep what I had built for the last 10, 12, 15 years of strength training. And so I went on TRT. My T levels, my free T, my total T was like 500 something. I forget what my free T was at the time, but basically I went on, I titrated up pretty quickly. I think it was like point, I don't even want to say because I'm gonna forget it, but it was a very, very conservative dose. Went on for about 14 months, had amazing results. Strength, built muscle, motivation, drive, but also straight up libido became a problem. It was just through the roof. It was too much. It was too much to handle. So I titrated down, began to also get some unwanted side effects, some breakouts.
Skin stuff.
I was really hot. I run hot all the time anyways, but I was just really hot all the time, and no chili pad or 8 sleep or anything was solving the problem. So anyways, but then also, my personal health goals changed. I got that back and I found the motivation and got my rhythm back, got my mojo back. But then my wife and I decided we wanted to start getting pregnant. We wanted to start our fertility journey. And, you'll hear and read a lot of different things about TRT and that, but I wanted to give myself as much of a fighting chance as possible. So I titrated down. I think about maybe 2 months, I just lower dose, slow taper, and then transitioned into Clomid.
Okay.
Ran Clomid.
It was Clomid or so clomiphene or N-clomiphene? Do you remember?
I'll have to double check.
Okay.
I can ask my wife. But I believe it was in clomiphene.
I
believe it was in clomiphene.
If it was in the recent, and this is important for people to know, when you have a choice and if somebody's going through this process, work with a doctor, of course, but lean towards and talk to the doctor about N-clomiphene.
Yeah.
Typically is just much better with lower estrogenic peaks and side effects.
Yeah, which I had a great experience with. Was able to transition off of TRT entirely. It was a 90-day protocol.
Okay.
Was still able to maintain mid 700s testosterone.
Yeah.
And I felt great. Was able to get back to my life. And then we began our fertility journey. Now we have an amazing, beautiful son. But then I say all that because I remember what it was like to be on T. The drive, the motivation, just, I like to be active. I like to lift heavy, but I also like to bounce back from recovery and have reduced, bounce back from injury and reduce recovery time and all these things. And that really sold me as well. So that was my reasoning for going through the Follistatin injection. Are my reasons common? And, my personal experience, I'll say my benefits, reaping the benefits now, it's been 5 months, almost 6 months?
Almost 6 months, yeah.
My lifestyle's changed. I just had a kid. So I'm not getting to the gym or training the frequency as much as I would like to or am used to. But I will say this, me getting to the gym now, I'm living my active lifestyle. I can't stop. My endurance is through the roof. I literally find myself third, fourth set, banging out more reps than even the beginning. I will have to stop myself. Which could be a problem, could not be a problem. But endurance, strength, incredible. I'm really, really surprised by as much as my lifestyle has changed with last couple of months of poor sleep, eating is wild. I highly doubt I'm getting adequate protein, but just my ability, all again, because I had a kid, my ability to maintain body composition in terms of weight and even free fat mass to muscle mass, I'm just amazed by. There's no way like I should not be like a little bit softer or not as dense or just, not able to still lift as much as I am now, given the months now that my training and lifestyle has changed. Are all these kind of similar effects that people might experience or, we're kind of seeing with Follistatin?
Yeah, well, thank you. That's one of the best feedbacks,
Like I can't stop working out.
Yeah, that's one of the best feedbacks we could ask
Once
for.
I get in, like my wife has to like call and get me out of there.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And firstly, I'm stoked that those are the results you're getting. I had very similar results myself, and a lot of people are having very similar set of results.
One other thing I'll say, I've probably put on, I'd say 4 to 5 pounds, and I haven't done an in-body, but I would definitely say muscle, like 4 to 5 pounds of muscle in about 5 months.
Yeah, definitely would recommend do a DEXA scan. Do it. I could be wrong now because things change so fast, but DEXA has a little bit higher accuracy than in-body.
Yeah, it's a gold standard.
Yeah. Do a DEXA scan because you may think you've only added 4 or 5 pounds of muscle, but the reality, data is king. I'm always pushing people to gather more data. You may actually have added more because you might have gone through a recomposition, right? Lost, added some lean mass, lost some fat. So you asked me 2 questions. Is it one, you asked motivation? Mm-hmm. Are other people drawn towards Follistatin gene therapy because of similar motivations? I think the set of motivations are different. Mm. I've seen people in my life, some in their 20s have done the therapy. My father's done the therapy. My mother's done the therapy, right? So I've have personal experiences now in my life of just decades, a full range of different age groups doing the therapy. So the motivation definitely varies. A lot of the publicity for mini circle gene therapy that we got was from the likes of Ben Greenfield, Dave Asprey.
Netflix documentary, Brian Johnson.
Brian Johnson doing it. Exactly. So same company. Yeah. We're Mac and Walter who got interviewed, and Dr. Ryan were part of Mini Circle. They're the founders of Mini Circle, Mac and Walter. The motivation for these influencers, biohackers was longevity. They're a lot of them view Brian Johnson looks at it as a sport. Essentially, this is his, bread and butter. He wants to live forever. He doesn't want to die. So that sector of people got drawn towards Follistatin for its longevity benefits. Other people, my approach towards longevity is like I really care about not just living longer, but also the quality of my life. Like I love pickleball. So for me, Follistatin enabling me similar results to you where my endurance went up. And I had some interesting positive benefits that we don't know if have been quantified as a result of Follistatin directly.
Like what?
But like my V02 max went up after doing Follistatin.
Really?
But I don't know if Follistatin is going to up your VO2 max, but I recovered faster. I had more endurance. So now I was playing pickleball 2-3 times more per week. So it's the compound effect, right?
Yeah.
Follistatin does not necessarily give you a cognitive boost. There's no direct correlation, but the inhibition of myostatin and activin can reduce inflammation in an individual, right? The reduction in inflammation for some people can result in a cognitive performance boost because the inflammation in the brain drops, and now you have
I didn't notice anything like that, cognitive boost or enhancement, but I think it's fair to point out like cognitive awareness and decreased inflammation and nutrition, all these things were already a very big part of my life and lifestyle for years. So I didn't really go into it with that being a need.
Yeah. And what you're bringing up is very valid and a fair point. Just depending on the unique circumstances that individuals have and where they are in their health journey, there's a uniqueness to the benefits they will experience, right? You were almost like an ideal kind of candidate for doing this sort of gene therapy because things were very dialed in your life. You were very focused on your health and paying attention. Typically, when an individual like that does the gene therapy, Follistatin gene therapy, because they have a pre-established baseline, like you were working out. You knew how many reps you could do in a set exercise.
Gotcha,
You had an established baseline, right? Just now the perception of and this is very transparently telling people, everybody may be having very positive benefits, but the perception and how you receive these results and your brain perceives them, that is an important component of the journey. So people with established baselines can usually differentiate the positive benefits a lot more than somebody who doesn't have that, right?
That makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm super stoked for what you went through. And one other thing worthy of pointing out, in your experience, that can be a little bit challenging to quantify, but you publish in a study, but a lot of people did report this increase in resiliency or feeling of well-being. Even for myself, it's almost like for you too, it's like a little bit of a cheat code, right? You've been able to get in this process of you having a kid and, sleep being compromised, workouts being compromised. You've been able to keep up a little bit more.
That's a huge point. That's a huge point. I've actually thought about this a lot because straight up, I think a couple months after the procedure, I was telling my wife, I was like, yeah, I think I feel something, my workouts are getting better, but kind of, maybe what I was hoping for with this procedure was just like seeing crazy results. But when I really took a step back and I got very real with my situation, I was like, sleep is getting way less. It's getting a lot more interrupted. And this is even, before the kid, just that life change coupled with where I was like professionally and, busy season with work. I was like, Chase, it doesn't make sense that you're just weight that you're feeling. And also like your weight, your body, it doesn't make sense that you're able to maintain this given this situation. Yeah. I mean, even with all my background and years of experience, like, you've got a really strong foundation in health, like you can give and take a little bit more, I think, than the average person. But I was like, okay, this has got to be it. It's got to be the full. It doesn't make sense that I'm able to maintain what I'm able to maintain and also have this level of resilience whenever I am able to get back active again.
Yeah, there's the muscle retention. A lot of times the muscle gain is a result from how well you are retaining the already muscle you already have, right? Yeah. The way Follistatin works is you retain your muscle better. You retain your muscle longer. So the bang that you're getting out of each minute of exercise is a little bit higher when you're on Follistatin. Yeah. So, but all the results that you're having, they track very well. Just talking to people and looking at how they're responding, but also I've done Follistatin multiple times, my own experience too. One interesting one, when some of my friends did Follistatin, I think I was talking to Dave Asprey, maybe. He also reported the same thing. It's like we were running, on the treadmill or doing cardio, but after doing Follistatin, there was like this feeling of, I don't want to stop. And
that's
you
kind of
said too, you just want to keep kind of going, It's like almost a desire for physical activity when you're in it, just going up. So this is all ultimately, looking better, being stronger, having more muscle, being leaner, I think is, and having this desire for activity more is resulting into feeling of better well-being, right?
But I mean, ultimately, it also comes back to what I was talking about earlier of when you can have that feeling about what you're doing, whatever your exercise or activity level is or activity of choice is, when you can have that level of, I love what I'm doing, I love the feeling, like literally the physical feeling of it, and I want more of it, again, in a healthy dynamic, that's adherence.
Yeah.
And so I think it's huge for anyone to be able to have or to get back is what is going to keep you well for as long as possible. which leads me to my next question. We're talking about longevity. I mean, I think qualitatively and very high level, that's it. When we talk longevity is what can I do here and now today when that is going to compound, that's going to keep me adherent to things that I want to do that I can do for as long as possible. How can we really measure or look at longevity when looking at follistatin?
Yeah. Really, really good question. And I'm very happy you asked that question. The answer is not very good for this question because the technology to measure longevity is evolving at a very rapid pace. New algorithms are coming out, new companies are forming, the companies that are already existing that are doing biological age, testing, they're just evolving at a very rapid pace. So we are very actively involved in looking at all the companies that are doing biological age testing, epigenetic age testing, just looking at them and seeing, what we think is the best way to clock in the results. So at the moment, we were working with True Diagnostics, True Age Test. That was a very good way kind of to measure, at least for the time being.
And walk us through real quick, please. How do we measure that? What are the biomarkers? What are the tests to look at biological versus chronological?
Different companies are looking at different things, but at the most basic level, I think the best answer would be telomere length. That's one way of looking at it. Some people are looking at methylation pathways, but it is not my area of expertise. But in a nutshell, what I will say is that area is evolving very rapidly. And soon, there will probably be a variety of tests that will be very good indicators. And the company we may have an official stance in 6 months or a year that this is the test that we're recommending where you can really clock and gauge your longevity or epigenetic improvement.
Also you hit on it earlier. V02 max now is strongly being looked at in terms of longevity, along with HRV. We're finding people in their 80s, 90s, even centenarians as this new kind of, because we didn't really measure that before.
Yeah.
HRV wasn't really
Nobody
a huge
measured
thing.
it, yeah.
Or, V02 max, we're not getting an 80-year-old on the treadmill to run through a V02 max test, but now we have different tests and different ways to measure that. So now, these are things that we can now measure now to see if there's an acute short-term improvement. And again, compounded over time, we know is going to eventually, who knows really, we'll see in a couple of decades, but those are going to be measurements for longevity.
Yeah. But, I want to make sure I give the very accurate information. As a scientist, it's my duty to not, if it hasn't been studied and quantified and recorded and published, I'd have to give an asterisk, that this is some intimate details that we're sharing here. These are not published. So the markers you are talking about, like HRV and these improvement, V02 max, that's my detail that I shared. It hasn't been recorded that this will improve V02 max, but theoretically, with what I'm laying out that, because my recovery improved and I was stronger, it adds up, That's one. Second, I think one critical component of the question you asked in this answer that's important for people to understand, one can get really caught up in biometrics. Like I have an Oura Ring, I have an Apple Watch, I had a BioStrap, I had the Whoop, you can keep going down this path and get very obsessed with it and completely lose sight of the connection with your body and how you're actually feeling. How well are you maintaining your relationship with your romantic partner? How well are you maintaining your relationship with your parents if they're alive or your siblings? Are you being authentic at, your work, your career, with yourself? So I think it's very valuable to clock in, do a longevity test or a biological age test, get your epigenetic tested, look at your Oura Ring data. But it is very critical to make sure the foundation of your life and health is in the right place. And I don't think there's a biometric that is going to, I guess an HRV could be, one could make a case that, if your HRV is high, your relationships most likely are in a good place,
I ran a self-test a couple of years ago. First and foremost, I've talked about this. I did a whole podcast about it. The thing that moved the needle the most for me, but to increase HRV, was microdosing psilocybin. I did a 2-day on, 1-day off protocol for a month. And then within 3 months, my HRV increased 40% and then stayed. And I'm talking like getting up into like the 100, 110, 115.
Oh, wow. That's incredible.
Yeah. From like my baseline was like around 60.
And how were you measuring it?
Through Whoop.
Okay.
And I had a couple of years of Whoop data, baseline HRV data before going into that protocol, and then tracked it for the next 3 months. I've got months of data on it. Yeah.
Wow.
So that was huge. But also I ran this other self-test when I began to really dive more into the qualitative aspect through what you're talking about of relationships. I noticed I was going through a period in life because of work where I was not prioritizing. I wasn't keeping, dates with my wife or having fun or just relaxing, detaching, going outside and getting with friends. And I would measure on weekends. I would look at my HRV of weekends when I would stay at work or like not go outdoors and not be with people that matter to me. And every time, and I could go do this. I could go to the beach, be with my wife and friends, and we could be drinking alcohol. We could be not drinking, whatever. Anything that could seemingly or typically decrease HRV or be considered a bad thing. If I was doing it with meaningful people and having fun during that time, my HRV like shot up. It was crazy. So like, it's just a really interesting point. N equals 1 here, but there are seasons of life, even long stretches, kind of like with you. We need a drastic change of a very specific quantitative way to change our life, but qualitative measures matter just as much, if not even more, I think, in the long run, personally.
Yeah. And it's the balancing act, right? Like we are, and that's why I'm really enjoying this conversation too. I feel like on the one end, we're talking about like gene therapy, like at the forefront, of cutting edge technologies. And on the other side, we're trying to make sure people are aware, like, are you assessing your relationships? Where are you?
It all matters.
Yeah, it all really matters. And that's the journey I feel like we've been on. And it's very, very exciting. But I think you can change the N of 1 to a higher number. I would definitely say, not just with myself, but a lot of people in my vicinity, in my network, they see their HRV spike go up with either microdosing with psychedelics or even doing like a plant medicine ceremony. So there is more awareness, definitely getting around this subject on how it increases your HRV. I've definitely seen it with myself. I also conform to a school of thought that the company, the human relationships, they're critical and nothing essentially is bad. Even we spoke very poorly about, fentanyl and about all these compounds. Everything can be used very therapeutically. It has its pocket, it has its niche. So even alcohol, there can be a pocket with your partner when it can actually be therapeutic for the relationships. It's all on how you use it,
I agree. Kind of getting towards the end here, man. I do want to, can you dive in a little bit for us on, what does the research show? What does it really show is clinically evident when introducing follistatin?
Yes. So the research was on follistatin, the actual protein. And a lot of the early on research was basically inhibiting or fully knocking out the myostatin, gene. So that's the pictures when people are doing research on follistatin. Some of the early pictures you see of like this bull or a dog like fully jacked or very muscular. That's when you're fully just knocking out like just myostatin and activin. This is not that, but this is all coming from that lineage of research. Yes. So the clinical evidence, to try to be very accurate here, lean mass increase, loss in fat, this body going through a recomposition benefit, and then some epigenetic age, performance or rejuvenation boost. These three are probably the most accurate way of describing the benefits of follistatin. After that, it gets a little bit hazy. You want a lot of data to back it up, but there definitely is data, could be data that's indicating that you can have bone density improvement, your inflammation can drop, and you can have ancillary benefits. Those can get a little bit challenging to track where the research is right now, but the three benefits that I gave you, those are, we can definitely say there's clinical data on them, that even predates MiniCircle. The therapy slowly turns itself off within about a year period.
I was going to say, this isn't a like a lifetime commitment thing, but it has a lifespan.
Yeah, and that's very worthy of noting that this is a transient, temporary gene therapy. A lot of the gene therapy historically, the way it was done, and a lot of it, the way it's still being done, is usually done with a viral vector, and they're going in and modifying Chase's permanent DNA. So it's a permanent edit that's with you for your lifetime. The way MiniCircle's gene therapy works is it's transient, it's temporary. That kind of is a highlight of what adds to the safety profile of the therapy, because you're not making a lifelong commitment. You're doing it. It's in you for about 1 year period, and it slowly just tapers off and wears out.
Okay. So then I think that probably begs the question, these results that me personally, or anybody experiencing, do they all go away in 1 to 2 years? Or is it just a way to kind of ramp up our ability to like get to that next level, even maintain our level of wellness, body composition, resiliency, so that we have a higher fighting chance to keep it as we progress? Or do we just constantly need to get this again?
Yeah, you nailed it. You nailed the essence of the answer already. The way you want to look at it is it's like it's topping off a tank. You're definitely strengthening your foundation. One of the things, I'm very happy with doctors like Peter Attia and a lot of other doctors who are in the community, yourself included. You talk about muscle a lot. Muscle is a very undervalued piece of real estate in the human body that is very associated. You can't get out of a chair if you don't have muscle at a certain age. Sarcopenia is a real thing, right? So gaining muscle gets harder and harder as you age. So that's a huge benefit, even if that's something that's not sticking, just getting on follistatin for a year and adding, some more real estate, some more muscle in your body. That's something that's going to be beneficial for the rest of your life, right? Now, on that note, there definitely this boost period you are experiencing, it doesn't entirely go away when the therapy is out of your body, because if you're healthy, right, is you strengthen your foundation, some of these benefits will stick with you. But that extra cheat or kick that you do experience, that does go away. Because your follistatin levels will normalize, but it's not like your body's getting a signal that, follistatin is gone, let's go back to the old baseline. Gotcha. If you maintain your positive habits, like, if your calories are met, your resistance training is there, you should be able to maintain it, but it does get harder to maintain it without the follistatin.
And follistatin, we naturally create this. Our bodies naturally produce it. Am I hearing correctly? And this is just a way to like boost it?
Yeah, man, you're great at this. You're asking all the perfect questions. Follistatin, FST344, it's biological. So everybody has it, but people don't have usually enough of it. And it drops. It's probably dropping as we get older. So this is a biological, protein that's existing in the body.
Yeah. I mean, I have to assume it's something, like hormones, like collagen. Once we reach these kind of like, decade markers, 20s, 30s plus, everyone knows a lot of this stuff just naturally declines.
Yeah. That's a really good point. And I think the mainstream, there's not a lot of attention around this one subject, that aging is not linear. Not many people are talking about it. People generally, the scientists in the longevity space, people who are doing the research, they're very familiar with it. But aging is not linear. As you pointed out, you can be certain things in your body, certain levels are dropping, but then comes like a 2-year period. It's now you're going from like, 60% down to 20%.
Right, yeah.
This can happen with your hormones. This can happen with your NAD level. This can happen with a variety of things in your body. So that's why it is very critical. So your lifestyle may be sufficient now, and the things you're addressing now are good, but you may need to do some. This is where Follistatin really, really shines, right? For people who are doing everything in their lifestyle and have really, really good approaches, and you're kind of maxed out. You're maxed out. Right. You're like, what can I do next? Then, you've done all the peptides. You've done rounds of stem cells. Gene therapy really kicks in after that. That's something where you can definitely get a huge edge.
Stem cells is kind of next to my radar. I have not done any stem cell therapy. I had a guest on last week, shout out Dr. Joy Kong.
I did cells with her last week.
No shit. Okay. Amazing. Yeah. Really got me curious about stem cells.
Both of those items like peptides and stem cells, they're low-hanging fruit when it comes to injuries and recovery. Yeah. It can be tremendously beneficial. You can imagine, that's one of the things we didn't really touch on. My back, how did it, I wasn't able to walk for so long because of this back injury that I had as a kid. So I deployed all these interventions to actually fix my back also, getting my lower back injected with different things. And stem cells has definitely been Dr. Joy Kong, the most recent doctor.
Did you do local or was it IV?
I did both.
Both, okay.
I did both. Even did a brain protocol to open up, did an IV mannitol IV to open up the blood-brain barrier, and then followed it with cells to get them. I'm definitely obsessed with optimizing the brain. So I've done a few different interesting protocols to get the cells to the brain, optimize the brain. So
I'm hooked now.
Definitely love Joy Kong.
Yeah.
She's fantastic. Yeah. We also did this and ended up sinking in for like 2.5, 3 hours while I was doing all of this. So I think we'll do a podcast together as well.
Amazing. Yeah. Jay, I feel like I could just keep going with you, man. Maybe that's a Follistatin. Again, my endurance is just...
It's us. It's all of it.
But also I want to highlight one other point before I get to my last question. And this might've just been unique to my experience, but the group that we went down with, and just like the approach that you and Mini Circle and this whole, community, this small community had to this experience, I think should not go unnoticed. It was such a great experience to connect with in my experience, it was just a bunch of other guys, which I don't have a lot of these days, so just kind of like that tight knit male community. A lot of guys were in committed relationships, we're married, or we're trying to take care of our lives and our businesses and our bodies and starting families. So I think it was just this really all encompassing dynamic approach that was ultimately this, this crowning jewel of the Follistatin injection that just really recentered qualitatively and quantitatively a lot of things in my life. And I'm very grateful for the opportunity that Mini Circle has presented for this experience. And now we're here to like shine a light on it again. So just thank you.
Yeah. You're very welcome. And thank you for bringing that up. So people are aware, typically when somebody's going and doing the gene therapy, they're going by themselves or they're going with their family. It's a very quick, easy process, as just one shot. What we did, I do a lot of the partnerships, influencer management, getting people in a group together. So John Beer, who introduced us, love John.
The legend that is John Beer.
From Jack Taylor. Yeah. He assembled, you were part of this group that he proposed, let's go do it. Juan Leha, Eric Leha, Carl Kingsbury, you, John, and myself. And it turned out to be one of my favorite trips of this sorts that I've done. I did Carl's podcast a few months ago too.
I listened to it. Great.
Yeah.
Really good.
And we sunk in. It was an absolutely great experience. I've been connecting with Juan and Eric. I'll be working on it soon when I moved to Austin. So that was a very beautiful trip. Loved it.
Thank you again. Thank you again.
Yeah, thank you.
The last question I ask everybody is to help us understand how you live a life ever forward, through your lens, your biochemistry lens, your follistatin lens, your just personal lens. Those two words, ever forward, what do they mean to you, man?
Doing my best to operate in a frequency of joy. Yeah. I believe, if I can remain in the frequency of joy ever forward, I feel like I'm golden. I have accomplished, that means I'm healthy. I've accomplished, my mission. I'm at peace.
I was expecting a peptide, but no, I mean, that's surprising.
All those things fall under that, right? Like if to achieve a state of a frequency of joy consistently, I have to tackle my health. And, under that is peptides and good diet and good relationship.
And good pickleball,
sleep.
apparently.
And pickleball, I tried not to talk about it too much because
this guy loves pickleball.
I love pickleball. I played 7 hours on Sunday, 5 hours on Saturday.
Man. I've never played. This was on my wife and I's list to do pre-baby. Definitely had to connect with you here soon once you get down to Austin, because I know they got courts galore.
Yeah.
But I'm uncoordinated as crazy. Tennis is a joke for me, but I feel like I could handle pickleball a little bit.
Yeah, I believe it's a longevity sport because the strain on your joints is very minimal. You're kind of hovering in zone 2, zone 3 cardio. 80% of the time. A few times you'll go to
also
zone.
Indicator of longevity. Yeah, zone 2.
Exactly. Yeah. And the studies that showed that tennis was like the top sport. One of the reasons why it was a top sport is the social component of it. You're always playing with somebody. With pickleball, you're playing with more people.
Yeah.
You're usually playing with 3 other people and you're closer together. So for me, it actually satisfies everything. Man. I look at life through the lens of pickleball many times. It's like it gets me moving, it gets me happy, keeps
You're outdoors.
I'm
usually
outdoors in the sun. I get to develop a unique relationship with all these compounds on how can I perform, like what is BPC doing for me, how is follistatin enhancing me. So it's a lot of fun.
Well, where can my audience go to connect with you, learn more about Minicircle? It will all be linked in the video description box and podcast show notes. But right now, where can they go?
Yes, minicircle.io is our Minicircle's domain, and feel free to also directly email me at j@minicircle.io or .clinic. Okay. That's my email. Cool. Feel free to directly contact me or go to the domain.
Awesome, man. Well, all right. Well, I guess I'll see you either in the pickleball court or maybe back in Cabo again in a few months. We'll see, man.
Yeah. Fantastic. Thank you so much for having me.
Man.
Yeah, appreciate it.